We're starting off today's show with a DAO that's participating in the conference, StoryDAO. They're on a mission to create DAOs where communities own, participate, and create story-based IP that becomes as culturally relevant as Star Wars, Pokemon, or The Simpsons. Joining us now are JP Alanís and Justin Alanís, StoryDAO's co-creators, to tell us more about their creation. Hello, guys.
Hey, how are you? Good afternoon.
We are fantastic. I think the first question that comes to my mind is, why do we need a DAO to do this? Creators have been coming together, I think, for as long as IP has existed and creating IP. Why do we need a DAO?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it has to do a lot with the changes that have happened in Hollywood for the last decade, essentially. You know, streaming has come in and created a completely new economic model around content. You know, creators used to be able to participate in the downstream revenue success of what they were creating. And now streamers own your content, you know, in every territory around the world and in perpetuity. And so there's no back-end participation anymore for creators. So what we're trying to do is create an IP incubation platform that allows creators to co-own the IP that they create, and allows communities to come in and not only experience that IP, but actually participate in the IP creation and actually co-own the IP themselves as well.
I'll jump back in. I was going to let it
I want in. Jen, I thought you were going to take the follow-up. Come on. Hey, I want in. I want in.
All right.
Jen, that pregnant pause was too much. All right, Wendy, you take it, and then I'll jump in after that. Go for it.
I actually think that this is a really great idea because I am a content creator. I create on YouTube, on TikTok, Twitter, a little bit, Instagram, Facebook, and it would actually be cool to own my content because I'm still utilizing a third party to push it out to the masses. But it might be cool to actually own some of these content pieces, especially some of the educational ones, and let my community do whatever it is they want to do with it. How would I, as a YouTuber, how is that something that I would do? And either of you can answer this.
I think, well, first of all, I think as a creator, what you're experiencing through YouTube and the other mediums that you're creating in is not too dissimilar from other amazing creators out there where they're trying to monetize their creations in ancillary ways, and those platforms become great distribution mechanisms, but the content itself is not monetized. And so what we want to do within StoryDAO is take all that creative energy that exists out there with UGC, user-generated content, similar to the way that you're creating content for YouTube with your committed community of fans, but then removing the middlemen from the ecosystem and allowing then the creators to co-own the actual platform and connect directly to the fans of that content. What we've seen in Hollywood is not just a problem on the creator side, where creators are getting squeezed from a back-end royalty perspective, and also they're getting squeezed creatively where their voices aren't getting heard, and they're having to resort to going to UGC platforms like TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. But we're also seeing a problem on the fan side as well, where the content, fans want to get closer to that content than ever before. They want to experience it. They maybe want to co-create. We see this through cosplay. We see this through fan fiction. We see it through fan art today. But right now, the content relationship is really a one-way street. So what the new blockchain and DAOs and NFTs and tokens allow for is it allows not just creators to overcome those obstacles, but also fans to engage in a more intimate way with that content and actually produce value around that content as well.
All right, I'm going to hit you with a question because I'm very curious about this. Curious if you're watching the CFTC versus UKI-DAO thing, and questions around whether DAOs can operate legally as we dream them to exist here in the U.S. specifically. As it relates to sort of the regulatory context around DAOs and shared IP ownership, what's your current thinking on that? How are you approaching this? Seems to be a bit more fraught of a landscape following this CFTC action.
So we're tracking and monitoring all that closely. Unfortunately, within the United States, especially right now, we're operating in tremendous gray area. I think the underlying ethos is that you want to make sure that you're not tripping over securities laws, right? And you have to make sure that the value that's being created actually goes to the people, the ownership actually goes to the people who are actually creating that value. I think that's one of the central pillars of what we're creating. Should also note that StoryDAO today is a centralized company. We're using NFTs and we're using DAOs to create the new universes of IP creation in order to facilitate a community of creatives that co-owns this IP through NFTs and through a rewards and incentive system on our platform. But we are trying to navigate a very uncertain area right now. We're tracking all of this stuff that's happening with Yuga Labs, with the SEC very closely, so as to make sure that if we have to, for example, KYC all of the people who have co-creation and co-ownership of the platform, that we're able to do that and we're able to anticipate it ahead of time.
You know, when we talk about streaming services, I've noticed that they are kind of moving away from the model where they fund your entire project and keep the IP. They're more saying, go out, fund your project, come back to us when it's done. We'll license that IP from you in whatever different jurisdiction. When I think about DAOs, I think there's a real opportunity here for that funding piece. How are you thinking about funding creators so that they can keep that IP going as streaming services move away from this business model?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's absolutely right. I think some streamers are moving away from that business model. I think there's a lot of streamers that still want to own all of that content, especially if they're the ones that are developing that content. But I think when you talk about streamers right now, you know, they want to make sure bets. What does a sure bet on content look like? It looks like something that has kind of been proven out in another medium. So that looks like maybe a comic book or maybe a novel or a YouTube show maybe. And they're looking for something that has an ingrained community already within it. And so we feel like DAOs are the perfect sort of mechanism in order to be able to provide those two proof of concepts that streamers are really looking for in order to greenlight something. The way that people participate in the DAOs that we're going to be creating on the StoryDAO platform is that, you know, IP always starts with centralized creators, right? And so those centralized creators tell a story that takes place in a narrative universe. That story onboards a community of creatives, and those creators, those centralized creators, are able to sell NFTs that will eventually represent maybe that underlying ownership of that IP downstream. And yeah, that's how we're setting up these DAOs within StoryDAO.
And just like Hollywood is a network that lives right now off of the blockchain, where you have creators that are it's full of all sorts of creators. You have writers, you have editors, you have animators, you have VFX specialists. You also have producers, people who come in and help those creations become successful. What we're trying to do at StoryDAO is recreate the fabric of that network, but on the blockchain, where you're removing all the middlemen who choke all the revenue and creation out of the system. They create a separation between the creators and the fans. And what we're trying to do is bring those people together, where you have people who are producing the actual production by buying NFTs perhaps, and then by actually helping and becoming a brain trust of creatives around that platform and helping the centralized creators, and then engaging and creating attachment points for new creatives to come onto the platform to extend those stories in a fan fiction sort of way so that they can build out backstories and side stories and all sorts of different realities within a universe that maybe they vibe with, so that IP universe can expand in all sorts of different ways in a networked way.
Justin, JP, thanks so much for joining us today. One follow-up question. Crypto winter's here. How is it impacting the DAO you guys are creating? Is it hurting the influence of the social tokenomics you guys are building? Is it hurting like, the NFT drops? How do you guys navigate this uncertain landscape?
I think the crypto winter has been interesting. It has created a situation where I think fundraising is tougher. You have to be further along in terms of where you are from a business perspective in order to raise money, even if you're an established entrepreneur or a creative executive like JP and myself. But it also creates a ton of opportunity. In the bear market, we saw all sorts of different projects that had no business raising the amount of money that they did from NFT buyers. And what we we saw is it was mostly speculators. It's mostly people who are there just to make money. And what we're trying to build is something long-lasting that we hope is 10, 20, maybe even 100 years in the future, a stable and robust platform. And so what we've decided to do is really start our creative network with creatives. And so we started a producer token community. We sold a set of NFTs for 0.1 ETH, and we handpicked our early community of 300 people. It's all creatives from all around the world. And so the bear market created an amazing opportunity to move away from the speculation game that I think was happening in the bull market and move more towards really dedicated early community that really wants to be in this for the long term, and building that community from the inside of StoryDAO and starting to work our way out.
What's the reception been like from creators? Do they actually understand what's going on in this DAO?
It takes a second, honestly, especially for traditional Hollywood creators. I mean, I've been in Hollywood my whole life, and I think it takes a second, but I think as soon as you really tell them what the opportunity is, not only from a revenue standpoint, right? I mean, I think all creators feel this. I think you're going to see a writer strike in the next couple years here when the WGA renegotiates their deals. So I think you're seeing something happen within the fabric of Hollywood. I think all creators feel that. But I think when you start to talk to them about what this opens up creatively as well, I think creators don't love getting network notes from a bunch of studio executives that, sometimes there's a complete regime change within that studio. Sometimes you're getting notes from a whole bunch of different people that are competing notes. I mean, as a creator, I think I would rather get notes from people who could potentially be my audience, people who are fans of me, the end user. I'd rather be getting notes from those people than from Hollywood executives. And I think we're creating a system where we're not only fixing the revenue opportunity for those creators, but we're fixing a creative problem as well. And I think once you explain that to a creator, you don't have to get into the nitty-gritty of DAOs and blockchain, because I think there's so much, at least in the creator community, there's a lot of trepidation when you start talking about NFTs and crypto. But when you start talking about the fundamentals, I think that's when a lot of ears perk up. And creators are, I think, excited to work in this way once we get past that sort of crypto barrier.
Yeah, there's a lot of misinformation, I think, out there right now about DAOs and NFTs, especially within the creator set. And I think this goes back to the previous question about the bull market versus the bear market, where in the bull market, people just saw a lot of scams and a lot of speculation that was happening, and they didn't take it seriously. But the underlying technology that we're working off of here, I think, can be abstracted away and have it feel like a native product experience that people are used to engaging with. But under the hood, there's these really powerful new technological paradigms that are empowering co-ownership, co-collaboration, open access, open ownership, new things that were never before possible before the blockchain opened up these new technologies.